I wanted to start with your art practice. So we just heard in your bio that you're a transdisciplinary artist. Could you talk about what that means for you with a focus on your recent artwork?
Sure. What I mean by that, I'm going to answer in a follow-up to some of what our sister and goddess and visionary Shonna has shared. If you look around you, you will see, as Shonna mentioned, we follow spirit, we follow creator, we follow ancestors. Because in this world that we walk in, we are never alone. Mm-hmm. And as you had this beautiful guide of North Star for you, my North Stars have been my great-grandmother, my abuelita Cuca, and also my artist relative, Chelito Amezcua, who really, I think, created a path for me before they knew me, right? Mm-hmm. As my son creates a path for me by guiding me with their conocimiento and their trust and their relation to the spiritual world. My son's about to be 21, and I had the pleasure of knowing Shonna through mentors by the name of Michelle Walker and Alpha Bruton, who connected us. And like you see, you know, a lot, Shonna's so humble. The most gorgeous pieces in here are their creations, like this beautiful piece with the fish on her head and the beads in her neck, the shells, like, you know, this piece right here. They're collage, it's painting, it's artifacts coming to life, right? So that's what I do in my transdisciplinary work. I've been motivated and inspired by what you do visually and by other artists who get to work here as musicians. I've been inspired that way to also collaborate. So even though I'm trained as a dancer, or I'm trained as a theater maker, or I'm trained as a poet, what I do is follow the footsteps of my teachers and the guidance of spirit and weaving those. You know, I don't make baskets, but I do make ceremonial offerings of my work. And when I make my work, I work with people who I've just met in the past 5 years, like Ruben here, or I work with people who I've known for 25 years, right? And I say, hey, I have these photographs. What can you breathe some new life into these photographs? And for example, Ruben will create this digital design landscape, right? Or I have this idea, a concept, and I will say, Jesse Bliss, we're creating this indigenous, you know, work of theater. And I'm holding 200 names of missing and murdered indigenous women right now. And I need to write something. And I also need to put a play together in less than, you know, a month, right? So what do? I call poets. I call other writers and say, I download information I know, research that I have, and lived experiences that I'm taking in by people who are walking alongside these families, and educate and share. And then we have like a transfer of understanding. And then there's trust to take that information and make new work. And so I get a poem from Jesse Bliss after a conversation like that. And then what do? I call my dear friend of 25 years, Amy Reed, and say, let's compose some type of soundscape to this work that you can do through improvisation, of listening to me breathe life into this poem and movement into this poem through prayer. And then I called, you know, Gemma and say, Gemma, we need traditional song for this, to lift this through prayer, right? So I'm pulling and I'm weaving and I'm putting together, braiding together what in the end will be something that is, yes, a little bit of theater, yes, a little bit of ritual, yes, a little bit of poetry, yes, a little bit of dance, yes, a little bit of edutainment, if you will, because for some, they won't get it on a spiritual level, they'll be entertained. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna tell somebody how to receive my work. I'm just gonna offer my work up, right? For others, it's gonna be, I better get to praying. For others, it's, let me find that organization and get to giving. Right? Let me start month to month giving to the Sojourner Truth Museum. Mm-hmm. Let me month to month give to the Indigenous Justice platform, right? So it's supporting those families. Like that mentor who said to you, use my space, come and have your artist residency, and I'll also pay you to do this job, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. It's about that transfer of understanding, responsibility, and reciprocity. What we have, we can always share. There's nothing that's too big or too little to share. It has to be like, are you trusting enough to build a relationship? And that's what I do with my work. My work is about relationship. My work is about healing. My work is about transferring out of this thing of having to succumb to something that tells us like we're not enough or we haven't succeeded because we don't own this or that. Or we don't have so much money in our savings account. Or we're dealing with debt, or we're dealing with depression. Like, okay. And then what? Where is our faith? Where is our hope? Where is our love? Yeah?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So it's more than just using different media. You're bringing people together and to collaborate and make things greater than we could make alone. That's so beautiful.
To live together, right? To be in harmony with each other. To be in harmony with the gifts that we have of sharing how we hold faith, regardless of what's going on in the world. Acknowledging what's going on in the world. In that piece that I wove all those pieces together, in the end, what were we facing? We're facing, what we're facing in Gaza, right? So what did I do at the end of creating that piece? I brought in words, from Palestinian voices, right? A poet. And I said, it needs more. We need to type more. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. How long have you been working as a professional artist? Will you tell us a bit about your path that has brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, it's very also in alignment with Sister Shonna, the center that they were speaking of when they got to Del Paso, the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission. The two elders that I mentioned at the time who found me when I was about 18, 19 years old. I was a student at Sac State. And at that time I was not only a student, but also an activist or artivista as we like to say, with really the privilege of having elders and peers that are, and continue through their transcendence, because some of them are ancestors now, to be shape shifters of arts and culture in the world. So I had access to people who were not only my professors by day, but my mentors by night and weekend. And those professors, like these mentors that I mentioned, said, we can't just do what we do for us. It always has to be for the greater good. It always has to be connected to community. So I did not go to art school. I did not go to business school. I went and cut my teeth, if you will, at this institution called Sacramento State University, or CSU. I think they like to say stingers up, something like that. They have a beautiful,
I've heard that.
they have a beautiful new president, not the kind of president that was there in my days, but one who advocates for foster youth. So I have a big plan for them, but I haven't gotten there for that conversation yet. But it includes an artist who I'm working with right now, Ricky Allier, a painter. And so that school put me in a place where the mentors allowed me to go with them into prisons, into jails, into community centers, into senior citizen homes, into tribal colleges, into the field to work with United Farm Workers, for example, to make my first film with the original strikers who walked from Delano not once but twice, right? And to take interviews with them and to transcribe those interviews and to translate those interviews because they were all in Spanish. But I learned from them that it's not about the classroom. It's about how we walk in life. So Catherine Dunham, who you mentioned, I'm a student of through Dr. Linda Goodrich. Dance is a way of life. Poetry is a way of life. We have something called flor y canto in our cultura, our Chicano cultura, which means, flower, song, and movement. And so that's how Movimiento Molcajete was born, with my dear co-pilot of the time. And so we would make site-specific work out of our experiences and being on the front line of either the great strike that happened in the 90s, but also knowing of that, time in the 70s, because I didn't dream of a paintbrush in my hand, but for me, my hand, it made me think of this story too, Shonna. Mm-hmm. When I went to kindergarten for the first time, since we're talking about university, I'm going to talk about the first indoctrination, right? Kindergarten. Mm-hmm. When they asked me a question, I raised my hand like this. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that you raised your hand like this in class. Mm-hmm. I grew up marching before I could walk. And so I raised my hand like this. And the teacher came and opened my fist. And then I went like this. And I'm like, what is he doing? And then he opened my fingers again. And I went like this. He's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing's wrong. I just know the answer. And he said, oh, well, why do you have a fist? I said, well, that's how we raise our hands. And I knew that because in the marches, this is what I learned how to do from a very, very young age, right? From before I could walk. And the other way I raised my hand was like this, holding a phone to my hand when that's what you would do. Pick up, because I was in phone banks underneath the desk, right? Or I was in lines giving out burritos for people that were, on boycott lines, right? And I learned that from my parents taking me to work because, yes, they were teachers, but my parents never turned off their activist life. To this day, they make food and serve our unhomed community in Sacramento. My dad's 86, my mama's 76. To this day, they make the burritos and make the tacos, they make the lasagna, whatever it is, the spaghetti, and they show up to cafe, right? To clothes and food for everyone in Sacramento. And they say, here, this is what we have, right? Retired teacher, one teacher on Social Security, and that's what they do. They share with the little they have, right? Do they own anything? No. Do I own anything? No. What we have is this heart that just continues to give, right? And no shame to people who do own, like more power to you, but I'm just saying like our balance system is a little bit different, when you're not really taught to learn money in a certain way or deal with money in a certain way, and it brings consequences, brings choices of a different kind. And it's never too late also to learn new choices and new ways. So I'm not putting that down to understand that concept, but when you talk about business and art and for me, it's not foreign like I've never heard of it. It's foreign like I'm trying to acclimate at this point at 51 and still doing things the way I do, right? I think I got off subject there, but so how you walk in life. The other part of that was ceremony. Always engaged with, California indigenous peoples and access to something called an inipi or a sweat lodge. It's not a California way of ritual, but it's become a way because of the relations that we have through intertribal connections, right? And through intertribal opportunity to hold space together to learn and to relearn, or to learn for the first time for many people who are disconnected, detribalized, or not even official parts of their tribe by way of being enrolled or not enrolled, right? So that doesn't make you less Indian, doesn't make you less Native, less Indigenous if you don't have access to those people, places, ways. It just means you have a different way of getting there, a different way of teaching yourself, a different way to connect with community, a different way of being whole, right? I feel like I went a little bit far off. So those teachers and mentors, being a part of, an Afro-Cuban dance organization or community that went into schools and taught young people, or...
when was that, yAyA?
So a lot of these things were from 1990 all the way up until 2008. That was my time connected to the university. So either I was making Chicano theater, writing my own plays, directing my own plays, or acting in plays created by my director. I was also shipped off to work with the Teatro Campesino around the time Caesar died, which was good for me to get out of Sacramento at that time and see what it was like to live in the Bay. San Juan Bautista is not the actual Bay, but it allowed us to go and perform in San Francisco and San Jose. I'd lived in San Jose as a child. That's where my brothers were born, Dominic and Joseph, who are also artists, phenomenal artists. But I had this dream of always going back to live in San Francisco or Oakland because as a child living in San Jose, that was like the go-to place, right? There was also the poetry work that I mentioned. Back in 2016, I think was the last time I worked within the YOLO Juvenile Detention Center. And I got to work with my mentor's son. So that's Tomas Montoya, who's a filmmaker and a poet and a musician. And an actor. I made him get some poetry on the stage. So in and out of 1990 to now, I'm still working in relations with either sons and daughters of my mentors, or still working with my mentors if they're here and alive. Like we're gonna go with Alpha to Long Beach to create altars for a whole week. in August. And so, you know, what I planted is still growing.
Yes, you're nurturing those relationships.
Yeah, and what I love the most about what I've planted is being hired by students who I recruited to the university. Walking into a place like Zócalo, for example, back when I was like, I think when I turned 40 something, I walk into that space because I hear they're looking for an altarista for muertos. And about 10 plus years ago. And I go in to present myself and do my pitch, and I look at this young man and he goes, yAyA, it's me. And I'm like, and he says, you recruited me from Encina High School. And you taught me all about the 20 pasos, the 20 Mayan steps of becoming one with Creator. This is a grown person who not only graduated from Sac State, but graduated with even a master's degree at that point in business, and is working for, you know, is it, not Emilio, Zócalo person, forgetting his name right now at the moment. Ernesto, gracias. There's 3 Ernestos in the food world over here. So Ernesto, he's working for Ernesto. And he says, yeah, you recruited me. And if it wasn't for you, I would have never gone to school. As a matter of fact, my mom got, you know, her GED. And like, he's telling me all these beautiful things happened, right? Wow, okay.
How does that make you feel to hear that?
It's amazing. And I think recently I was around a beautiful young creative maker named Brandon, who's in the climate change and, you know, radical, you know, activist world, who also had an amazing time in a program called World Art Space, where you and Alpha worked on batiks with community. So Brandon was there, and their mother worked with your mother, and making this, it was Moctezuma's headdress that they made. I think your mom made one like from Egypt. So we had this beautiful time where we were all ages making batiks in a space. And then they'd go from making batiks to playing jazz music, to making films, to dancing with me, you know, dancing themselves into their memory and into their memory making. We had like a cultural anthropology through movement class that I led. And it's just wonderful to see your students bloom and remember that time and tell you that that time was so instrumental in what they chose to do in their life, right? And it's also wonderful to meet people who became artists much later in their life, or, you know, or they're still private artists and they're phenomenal business people sharing their artwork with you. I mean, look what I made. I'm like, okay, we're going to do something about that. You know, just being someone that people feel safe around is really important to me, because I'm about nurturing and cultivating, about holding that space and then connecting, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you don't love the whole business process, but
it's
I'm wondering.
Important. I get it now. I have a Renaissance artist child, so yes.
Yeah, we have to somehow afford this life. We have to eat. We have to have a place to live.
Yes.
So could you talk a bit about how you receive artistic opportunities that are paid, and how do you find these art projects to work on?
Okay. So in the earlier days, there'd be gigs, and they'd give us money for, you know, like a burrito and maybe the gas tank home. But we had to figure out the gas tank there and where we were going to stay. So if we didn't have a safe house in that community, I'd hit up my father and say, Dad, I need some t-shirts made because I need to sell merch before or after our performance, right? And the shirts of the time that survived his Raza Rags business, the most famous one, and the one that was really hip to people in college, was it looked like Coca-Cola, but it said Come Caca. It's the real thing. And it was basically like we say the word toma to Coca-Cola. Basically saying, get out of our communities, our people need clean water. Because Coca-Cola was taking up the most space in Mexico, swallowing what the Zapatistas were fighting for, and that was access to their own water, their own, you know, most resourceful resource, right? They're the most sacred resource, water. Isn't that the most sacred gift you can give somebody, water, right? So here's Coca-Cola doing their thing. So I was like, that's how I'm going to bring my dad's t-shirt back, one t-shirt at a time. And so I was pushing that t-shirt when I would go with my co-collaborator at the time. And we were going up and down California and Southwest. We eventually ended up doing our work in New York together. I think that was our final performance, which was phenomenal. And that was like, I don't know, about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. So it lasted a while. So aside from the merch and the vending, it's always been workshops. So workshops at the Crocker, workshops here, workshops at the Center before it was called the Galeria Posada, now Center for Latino Arts and Culture, right? It was, from the Bay to Sacramento, sometimes in Texas, it was about teaching your artistry and working in community. It was about being an artist administrator. It was about making grants, so becoming a grant maker. So sometimes it's commissioned work, sometimes it's work that's supported by grants, sometimes it's work that, I think I was sharing maybe with you, Gina, that, I worked one whole summer I worked one whole school year, after school project, so that I could go to Africa in the summer, so I could go to Cuba in the summer to take my own training, to be with elders and master teachers there in these countries. So it's not always just the performance, it's not always just the making, sometimes it's the education around the work, and facilitating, community workshops. Sometimes it's curating workshops, curating shows, sometimes musicians, sometimes visual artists. I've kind of I've cut my teeth in all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So I think I'm gonna ask Shonna some questions now, and then the conversation will be with you both, and then we'll open it up to the audience.
Sounds good.
So Shonna, could you tell us about how you and fellow museum staff choose artists like yAyA to collaborate with the museum on projects?
Well, we are very intentional about how we choose artists, and just having a long history with artists like yAyA, other muralists in our community like Jose Lott, Marcos, and knowing how the art practice of choosing artists, especially muralists, to do beautification projects, sometimes it's a hard process for some of the artists, a lot of red tape, including myself over the years, applying for funding to do a public art piece. So me knowing this, I'm like, we're gonna be intentional about just giving these artists opportunities and bypassing all the red tape. And by knowing their history, knowing their work ethic, knowing that they can come in and get the job done, we just give them a phone call. Brother Jose, I need you to come and join us on this project. yAyA, I need you to come and join us on this project. So there's no formal application process. It's just, us knowing their history, having a relationship with these artists, and giving them an opportunity to continue to work together collectively like we've always done for many years.
Could you tell us some ways that artists have gotten introduced to the museum?
I think one of our most newest artists on the team, I met him about, I believe, 2.5 years ago with a public art piece that was funded by the city of Sacramento. We did a mural at the corner of Mack Road and Valley High next to Big Lot. And that was Judah, okay? And so I met Judah and about 3 other artists, Lee McCormick, on that project. I invited both of them to come and join us on our recent mural project that was funded by Caltrans. And so, and other artists that I met recently would be Unity Lewis. I met him through my work at the Crocker Art Museum. And so I actually have known his grandmother for many blue moons. His grandmother is a famous African-American artist. Her name is Dr. Samala Lewis. And before even knowing him, Because of my love of her work, I had decided that we was going to name a space in her honor. And we've used her work for inspiration for many of the workshops that we do with the kids. So to meet her grandson was just icing on the cake. And so I invited him to come to the table. So it's, having all of these amazing collaborations going on with different organizations has given us an opportunity to engage and meet new artists and invite them to the platform. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So if there were artists maybe in this audience that would like to get involved with the museum, how would you suggest that they do that?
Tell them to come and have a seat at the round table with me, okay? And let's talk. That's how we normally do it. If there's a new artist that want to come to the table, we sit down and talk. I tell them to bring their photo of artwork so I can take a look at it. I make some phone calls to other artists that I might know. I say, hey, do you know this artist right here? And if I get the green thumb, I'm like, come on in. We welcome you to the table. Yeah. And again, just like yAyA was mentioning, just going on, what the spirit is leading me towards, trying to get a feel for that person, their spirit, We work a lot with spirit, and so that's very important in the work that we do, because being a creator is a spiritual thing, as the most divine would allow us to create like he or she would, okay? So this is all spirit here, so we have to keep that balance and that harmony intact, and I try to follow in that path. Mm-hmm. And if at any time there's any negative energy, then we have to move that energy out the door, because this is a space for positive energy and high vibrations. Excuse my voice. It's been a long week. I've been doing a lot of talking with the kids for summer camp, so excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think to what you spoke to, Shonna, too, is my, I think the first time I got to engage with the museum and its making was volunteering with my partner at the time, with Jack, on the wall here, and my son was about 2 or so, 2, 3. And it's really interesting because I think we've had this conversation either with you, or Miss Ali, your mama, that the elder who gave you that residency space is their daughter, is who gave my son his work experience piece right now, in 21 years later, right? He works for her daughter, who has a successful restaurant in New York. 27 years, now opened a restaurant in Sacramento. And same way, she says, I kind of have everybody, but I think you'll be my right-hand person, my assistant, to learn this business, right? And so it's the trust and the relationship, and the volunteer is really like how that begins to be gained, right? And it's not just about an exchange of money right away, it's an exchange of energy, time, and emotional and spiritual investment. Right. And from there, things can flourish.
Yes. Yes, Miss Tova.
Yeah, Miss Tova.
Thank you. Yeah, I also really believe strongly in volunteering if you want to get involved in a place and get to know the culture and the people and find out if it's even a place that you align with and want to work with further. So I thank you for that advice.
Thank you.
So you might have mentioned this a bit during your intro, but could you review a bit some of the ways that artists do collaborate with the museum, like on murals and?
Yes, I mentioned senior crafters. For me, honoring our seniors is very important. And today our youth and our seniors are not connected like they need to be. So we have a program here called the Senior and Youth Connect program, where we're connecting the seniors with the youth and vice versa. So we invite the senior crafters to come here, engage with our youth, as I mentioned, with teaching them the lost art form of quilting. Also, let me backtrack a minute. One of the things that I used to do when I was about 6 or 7 years old was quilt with my grandmother. Days, we'd go out in the garage and just do quilting. And today's youth don't have that experience with their grandmothers. I don't know what the grandmothers are doing today. I know they're a lot younger, but I know they're not quilting, okay? I don't know. So we want to keep that traditional art form going. And so the seniors also work with the youth to help them bake traditional apple pies and peach cobblers and things like that. Because again, that's what I did with my grandmother, right? Both grandmothers. So in turn, the youth help the seniors with their cell phone, with their computers and other things that they do for the seniors. So the senior crafters, local poets in Sacramento, jazz musicians. We have a jazz artist, Harley White, who's here every Thursday night, working with the youth. They created a band and they perform in the Sacramento community. We invite jazz artists and other local bands at all of our various events that we have throughout the year. Local storytellers, muralists, art instructors to not only teach here, but we are invited to go and teach and do outreach at local schools in Sacramento. They help us with those classes that we are invited to go and be involved with.
So I'm hearing there's lots of different ways that artists
Yes.
can be involved.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. How about like if an artist just came to you with their work and you don't really have anything now that you could fit them into, would you be open to discussing like a new project or?
Definitely.
I'm just thinking,
Yes.
I'm looking at Alejandra with her ceramic design studio. I'm like, I
Yes.
could totally see some kind of workshop happening with the youth here.
Yes, and we are open, okay? And I was just listening to you because I remember we were talking about our brother creating the graphic arts for you, and I was just, when you were saying that, I was like, Banana Festival, okay, we need that for the Banana Festival. I'm gonna reaching out to you, okay? All right. So yes, we are definitely open and always looking for artists to come and, help us with whatever we need help with, or bring something new to the table that we haven't had before. We had a local, well, she's not local, I think she lives in Davis, California. She does mosaic art, and she called us and said, I want to come and teach some mosaic art classes, and she shared her website and some of her work, and we're like, please come and share that with our youth and with our seniors as well. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, I think
ceramic bananas.
ceramic bananas. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm gonna give Shonna you a little break on your voice.
Okay, that's okay.
Turn it back to yAyA. And so could you talk about ways that you've collaborated with Shonna here at the museum and with the youth here as well?
Sure. Well, the World Art Space was one beautiful way that we collaborated, because we called in our elder who had just left living in Sacramento, and that is Alpha Bruton, who lives in Chicago but works between here, Fresno, LA. I mean, they're everywhere, but they come and they hold residency here either virtually or in person. So through World Art Space, which is a space I created that had a few walls. First, it was the building that's across the Christian Brothers High School, and then it was what used to be called the 40 Acres Art Gallery on Broadway. And these were free programs that were 3-hour workshops. We called them salons in that time. And so people like Tatiana Latour and Brian Latour were teaching music. People like, let's see, who else was there? Jack was teaching painting. Mike Rodriguez was teaching graffiti style work, as well as Padilla. What's Padilla's first name? I'm forgetting Padilla's first name. But this is a place where we collaborated, and we have also collaborated on murals and story gathering, interviewing Shonna while they're on the wall and presenting that out. So history prior to the wall and during the wall, assisting on these murals, learning from them as a painter. you know, how to also use that tool to communicate painting. And sometimes alongside Kimberly Marshall, sometimes alongside my son. So, you know, we've always been very welcoming.
And I want to say the class that she's talking about, that was my first introduction, and one of our senior crafters, Miss Ollie, who's also my mother, who works here, that was our first introduction to learning batik and tie-dye. And then we were able to bring that back and continue. We still teach that class here. So that was just
awesome.
An amazing opportunity for us to learn.
Yeah. And we also have worked at the Crocker together and curating and bringing together. I mean, if it wouldn't have been for you, we wouldn't have had Crudas Cubensi taking over the jazz night, opening the jazz series, which was a huge success. And that happened because, you know, Shonna brought me into the relations of meeting the brother who's there right now. Oh my gosh. Eben. It's a very unique name. So Eben was pretty great to work with, not only as a performer, as a person who was commissioned to create work there. And we did premiere work. I actually performed with one of the Crudas Cubensi artists, Oliver, and our phenomenal Dominic Garcia, who's local here as well, who teaches music here along with Harley. And so creating site-specific work together, collaborating as curators together, working on murals together. And right now I'm also in the middle of translating. So with my mom, I do translating services. My mom was a Spanish teacher for over 40 years. And so between my relations and connections in community who need that type of work, I work with my mom sometimes to translate what Shonna is putting out in community with some of the grants right now. And we hope to be doing a project together around storytelling, story gathering, and weaving for the stage. So that's in the process right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever did anything officially with Ebo Okokan, or if you had Ebo here after I was maybe not in the group anymore. But that's the Afro-Cuban group with Harold Muniz and Bea Godinez, or Sacramento Black Art of Dance, which both of those groups, I was a part of their inaugural, when they first existed on the campus. And I think both of those entities have supported Sojourner Truth at some point or in time with the Banana Festival, we will be collaborating with again and bringing the Cuban group here to perform.
So this year you're doing a performance at the Banana Festival?
I am not performing, I am producing.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I don't, there's the band, the Crudas Cubensi band is performing. I am probably just bringing them here.
Okay.
And I'll dance and document probably.
Yes. We love, she's just amazing after all these years. I just can't believe it. She can still get on the floor and stuff, limber. Just amazing.
You know, I did a poem about Miss Shonna, and it was a collaboration of women that I uplifted, you know, Black women who really guided, lifted, and centered, you know, my opportunities here. And so that was really special to do, to give flowers to Shonna in person through poetry. That was pretty special to do at the Crocker recently.
Yes.
Oh, wow. I would love to read that or hear it.
Yeah. I think they recorded it. Yeah, I haven't seen
know you sent me a video.
I did. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, you recorded it. Who recorded it? Somebody recorded it. I think it was Ruben. I'll blame Ruben.
Give him the credit. So in our chats before this, you both mentioned the importance of mentorships. And I see you've been talking about your mentors, Shonna and Alfred, your mentors. And Shonna, you were talking about how some of the more established mural artists that you work with mentor the younger artists on projects that the museum manages.
Yes.
Could you both speak to mentorship a bit and why you think it's important, and maybe some advice for people who are looking for mentors or who don't really know what mentorship could be like?
Yes. We both have the same mentor, Ms. Alpha Butan, and she's just been an amazing woman to me. I lived in Germany for a year. I failed to mention that. That was probably in the middle 80s. And when I came back, I was invited to be at an art exhibit. I think it was the Art Exhibition Center or something. I can't remember. And that's where I met Alpha Buton and Kevin Halan.
Okay.
They saw my art, and from there, Alpha kind of took me under her wings, and I can't get rid of her. Okay, she's an amazing woman, and then that's how me and yAyA was able to connect. It's through Alpha and Michelle Walker.
Yes,
but yes, it's mentorship is very important. I think when I was a little girl, I don't know if you know the artist Akinsanya Cambone. He has an exhibit at the Crocker Art Museum too, but he was a good friend of my father's when I was a young girl, probably age 5 and 6. And my parents had his art all over our home, and looking at his art was another source of inspiration for me. But when he would come over, I would run to the table with my pencil and pad, and I was like, his name back then was Mark Teamer. I was like, Mr. Teamer, you know, and he, you know, come on, baby, come to the table. And I knew I wanted to be a visual artist like him when I grew up, seeing his work of strong African-American features. But today, we work with a lot of young and up-and-coming artists who want to be muralists. And we invite them to come in, are just visual artists, and we share information with them, you know, about how you can make money as an artist, you know, if you want to be a cartoonist or a graphic artist, if you want to be a muralist, or you want to create greeting cards or make jewelry, whatever the case may be, we bring them to the table and we help them develop a business plan. We share information where they can get their greeting cards done, where they can get canvas prints completed. And so one of the two local artists working with us, Judah and Soshi. I don't know if you've met Soshi. Actually, Judah has been being mentored by Jose Lot and Marcos. And then Alpha's been working with Soshi. She just invited her to come to the table 3 weeks ago to help her with her people chairs. It's an amazing opportunity to connect senior artists in our community with up and coming and emerging artists, so they can get what they need to help them to fulfill their dreams as artists. Mm-hmm.
What would you say are qualities of a great mentor?
What I look for in a great mentor, I think I mentioned earlier, is a good spirit, okay? That they are professional. Professionalism means showing up in time for the project, making sure that we work a lot with muralists, and if we have to get on the artists, you know, to clean their paintbrushes, because paintbrushes are very expensive.
And don't clean themselves.
Yeah, it's okay. So one paintbrush can cost $50, you know, and if we have to get on artists to not leave their paintbrushes out, so they harden up, and then we have to toss them in the trash. If we have to get on them not to put the lids back on the paint, that's an issue, you know. So that's a part of being professional, making sure you have good work ethic, your own time, you're sharing the right information, you're coming with positive energy. And it's the little things, like I said, cleanup is very important because it's saving us money. We all don't have money like that. So we're looking at the entire package for them to be able to pass that information down to the younger artists.
So that's like specifically mentors at this museum. They should be an example of how to be a professional artist in an organization. Right. Clean up after yourself, be respectful, be on time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, I've heard amazing things from Sochi, traveling 2 hours each way. Mm-hmm. Yes. And Alpha saying, and she would be there before I was there.
Wow.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's the determination and the commitment is huge. Right?
Yeah, so if we set the time for you to show up at 10 o'clock and we don't see you till 4 o'clock, or we don't see you at all, you know, that's not professional, and that's not going to help us move to the next level. That's not acting on the level of high vibration. We want to all strive to vibrate high. That's the key.
yAyA, did you want to share anything about what makes a great mentor?
For me, patience, I think, and the real commitment to transparency and truth around the long view, or the long run, right? Not just what's in front of you, but just really having the ability to be the visionary in a collective and space with your creative partner, your creative thinker, your collaborator, your mentor, your mentee. I think also mentees are just as important as mentors in my life right now. Being on that 51 side, I'll be 52 in November. But just, I've learned so much from being a parent of an artist. And he's just really a guide. And, someone who's just turning 21, I really appreciate the voice of 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, even 40-year-olds who, have learned things much differently than I did. And I feel like I learned the hard way, which is not good or bad. It just was or is, right? And so, and sharing the embodied experiences and sharing the lived experiences and ways that maybe things came to them and ways things come to me, and meeting each other where we are, I think is important. And, I think the elders who I have that are no longer here, I really still go to things that I would write in my notes when they would speak to me, or things that I would write after watching them perform, or being on a long drive with them when I would journal. I still, I kind of use those as my tablets to go back to and kind of still stay in conversation with them. Sometimes they visit in dreams and remind me of where to find what I'm looking for. And sometimes it's just like I'm opening the right thing at the right time. I'm going and my old agenda books, which I still use, and finding things like, oh, that's how we did that, or that's what I'd never want to do again. A little bit of both.
That's great advice to keep records and documents. So.
Yeah, and sometimes sometimes we don't have the time to write it or speak it into our phones. So, using the tools that we do have, like the funny thing of Instagram, for example, or whatever platform, to log and to, be our own archivist, so that we can see that trajectory. And also acknowledge, like, when we're so hard on ourselves, to be a little bit more gentle with ourselves around, okay, you don't have to repeat that, or that was really amazing. How did you do that so that you can get there again through another venue, through another community circle, through another portal or medium, right? How can you take it to the next level?
So in all of these sessions, I wrap up the conversation with this question, and it's that time now. And could you each offer one piece of advice for artists who would like to develop professionally as business owners?
I'll let you go first.
You're on the spot, go.
How I would advise someone to go about being a better business person?
Yeah, to be professional in their artistic practice. And
I think you said it, like, be on time, be prepared, do your research, do your studies, make sure you make time for your prayer as much as you make time for your, make sure you make time for prayer, no matter what you do. Your centering of self is really important. And like I said, that care time for you to just really be in alignment and also purposeful and organizing yourself. I think one of my mentors right now is really on me about, certain hours and certain amount of time to do certain things, right? And I think that's really important to watch your success and to plan your success and what that looks like for you, not necessarily comparing yourself to others,
yes.
but what success looks like to you internally and spiritually. And yes, we do need to eat. So making time to make those calls and follow-ups on wherever you've applied or wherever you get to know people. I think it's really, no matter what you do, it's really always about relationships and nurturing them, letting them go, no longer serve you, let them go. Don't have what isn't yours or doesn't serve you around you, because it'll keep you stuck. And I know that from the hard way, right? And then I know the beauty of that in a good way too. So of like making new relations or having new connections in that way that you nurture, right? To move forward.
Yes, and I want to uplift what you said about defining what success means to you. I was recently thinking about that. I feel like I spent so long chasing after what society told me success was, and that's not actually what made me happy.
Right.
So to figure out what makes you happy and then
Yeah.
to go for that, that's really important, I think.
Yeah, what allows you to see and feel that joy daily versus like suffocating yourself for it and thinking that you can only have it when you hit that mark or get that degree or get that job or that title or drive that car or what have you. I mean, a lot of that was indoctrinated upon us as young people. Like, you don't really make it till you have this, that, or
Yeah, you're always
you drive
looking
this.
to the future and not appreciating what we have now.
Right. And really just accounting for where you are abundant in your relationships, in your access, and your privileges, and acknowledging where you want to be better in those places. So for example, like I said, whether it's tithing to an organization such as Sojourner Truth Museum, or working with a tribe, a local tribe, in their nonprofit space, or their or a library that they're building, or their health center, or what have you. You have the Native American Health Center down the street, right? Where are your resources? How and where are you sharing them?
How about you,
Everything
Shonna?
that they both said.
Shonna's like, yes, that.
100%. And I think another key component is never feel as though you have arrived, okay? Always be a student, okay? No matter, how old I will get, I will always be a student.
Yes.
Continue to learn. I don't know everything. Learn something new every day.
That's right.
And I'm always still studying the practice of oil painting, of acrylic paint. Before I leave before I transition, I want to be able to learn how to play the piano. I want to be able to learn how to do large life-size sculptural pieces. So I want to do something besides just pushing the brush.
Let's go.
So in September, I have committed myself to learning how to play the piano. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. Okay.
That's awesome.
So
They'll come back for the recital.
yes.
Next year, same day, Shonna's going to be playing the piano for us.
So there you go. Okay. So in addition to, like I said, always find balance and peace and harmony within yourself and within the space, the people that surround you, like our goddess said here, and how you define success for yourself. Make sure that is a personal relationship with you and the Most High, and as I mentioned earlier, all the other things, showing up on time for yourself, being professional, all of these things are important. And so,
And make time when you are not on your highest vibration to have that alone time and to get through it with that yelling, with that, with that crying, with that physical movement, to bounce it off, to just let it go.
right.
Because if you just think it's all about light and love, no, we can say that because that's what we want to project and that's what we want to encourage. But if we don't acknowledge the grief that we need to move through, get through, if we don't acknowledge the anger and the frustration that we need to move through and get through, that doesn't serve anybody either, because it'll show up.
Right.
And you'll be nasty to people you love, and you're like, why did I just do that? You know?
And one of the things that I'm learning, and I wish I would have learned this years ago, is holistic eating is a part of that, because as an artist, we want to be able to be here as long as we can to practice our art form, and we want to be healthy, So for the past year and a half, I've never had pork in my life, but a year and a half ago, I eliminated all chicken and fish. Because I've been suffering from diabetes and, trying to still be here and work and perform as an artist and being at some all-time lows, as far as my health. So I've been trying to reclaim my health and nurture myself back to good health and healing and all of that. So, but what I did was when I eliminated, the chicken and fish and all of that, I turned to like Beyond Burgers, and all of those things, beyond breakfast food and bacon and all. But that's just as unhealthy because it's processed food. So what I've done now is I've eliminated all processed foods. No milk, no cheese, no. I know that's hard.
You're so disciplined.
No. And what else? All the bad foods, and just pretty much doing plant-based, and I'm currently doing a 100-day watermelon cleanse. So this is 28 days for me, just watermelon.
Glowing.
And so I'm feeling good. Thank you. I'm feeling good, and I'm looking for the afterwards. What am I doing afterwards? So I said, okay, after the 100 days, I'm going to be looking at 3 days raw foods, and then maybe 2 days plant-based, where I'll cook something. I'll allow myself to cook something, maybe some black rice and purple cabbage. And then maybe 2 days I'll juice and smoothie. So it's constant meditation and prayer because it takes a lot of strength. If you've been eating the wrong foods all your life, and so we're working with families now to try to guide them on this path too, because we want our community to be healthy so they can be here, so they can do the things that they need to do, because you're no good if you're sick, right? And you're not healthy.
Yeah.
So
we have to take care of ourselves before
Yes.
we can take care of each other.
Yes.
Yeah, and on that note, like in that transparency and that vulnerability of acknowledging the time to do that and the focus and discipline to do that, for me, it's really, this past year, 2 years has really been about, for me, balancing my mental health and my mental wellness. And really just taking that time that it takes to be alone, because I'm constantly surrounded by or in service of people, like groups and family, and so being alone is very foreign to me too. But I've become more, I would say, accustomed and okay in that space this past 2 years. You'll still find me in many circles and many group community gatherings and such, but so much more of my time than ever before in my life I've been spending alone. So yeah,
it's important.
It's a radical change, like a radical change for me.
It's a wonderful thing though to be alone, alone time, meditation, and all those things. What's going on back there? Those kids, they're tearing the building down.
Well, this has been such a beautiful conversation.
They're making theater.
I just want to open it up to the audience. Does anyone have any questions? I believe Carlos has a mic, so if you have a question, raise your hand. And Carlos, will you bring the mic, or do you want Bernie to? Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you all.
Having us.
So I heard it in all that you were saying, and everything that you said, was about, the way that we have as artists. There's an inner excavation that has to happen in order to express something externally. And I heard, yAyA, when you were talking about the ups and downs, this, especially in this time, right? And how we stay with the work, we stay with the practice. And I'm curious, like specifically, like you talked about diet, and I can hear that. I feel like part of what that allows us to do is our bodies to metabolize what's happening in the world, right? And to move that forward, right? But what other practices do each of you do? Like, what consistently do you do? And yAyA, and I heard you this morning, like, getting up and having that sunrise, whether that's on the road, or, some moment, right? But I'm curious what practices y'all do, on a regular, maybe not every day, but on a regular basis to keep you engaged with your work. keep excavating, keep expressing, keep engaged with it? So.
For me,
Thank
prayer.
you, Gemma.
Thank you. Prayer, meditation. That's every day. Talking to the ancestors. I talk to the ancestors every day. Talk to Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, my grandparents, Grandpa, Marcus Garvey. I invite all of them to the table. I talk to them, you know, and do grounding, you know, going out and connecting with the sun, you know. Oh my goodness, I'm afraid of what's going on in there. Gosh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, museum back there. Okay.
Do you want to go take a look, really?
Could you please?
Yeah, I'll go take a look.
Thanks. Okay, I'm so sorry.
But she's answering your question.
Okay, thank you.
She's not my grandma.
Thank you. I'm sorry about
She's
that.
she's gonna listen to your answer on the playback.
Okay. But yes, I make sure that I do those things every day. I mean, I cannot leave out of my bed without praying and talking to the ancestors. I just can't do it. I feel like I've failed myself if I attempt to leave my space without prayer, without speaking to the ancestors, and then before going to bed at night, you know, I turn on some meditation music, and I listen to that before going to bed at night. I make my herbal teas at night, and in the morning the same. And it's a ritual that I do, and I feel like I'm off balance if I leave my space. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that.
It's all together.
Yes. So my herbal tea I make with you know, my cumin, with my cloves and my garlic, fresh garlic and lemon, and I put a sour sop leaf in it.
We need a recipe book.
Yeah.
It's like
And a little
everything.
bit lately, I've been adding lavender
What's Shonna do?
to it. So that's a ritual for me every morning. You know, my herbal tea, and before I go to bed at night, my herbal tea. And like I was telling them, I listen to my meditation music. I find it on YouTube, and just the sound and the vibration. And there was a new one that I started listening to. I can't think of it, but it's something to help get rid of the parasites and the worms. It's a sound vibration that you can listen to that eliminates the worms and the parasites that we have in our body. And we all have them, especially if you're a meat eater. And so these are the things that I do every day. And like I said, I feel off balance if I eliminate any of these things. I'm off balance. And so,
Yeah, for me, Gemma, it's, you know, wonderful moments like getting a call from yourself or, you know, Ruben here or Gina here, and just having time to reflect and share and process is important to me. Getting up and either putting my bare feet into the ground is really important to me. Movement, so that might be some stretch, some yoga, sometimes it's in my bed, sometimes it's across the floor, you know, in the living room. Sometimes it's in a parking lot because like I go too fast and I'm like, oh, didn't do that. I need to do that before I go into where I'm gonna be, right? So where I was living, I love doing it on the deck, which is phenomenal, but I'm no longer there, so I'll be probably doing more of it at the lake now. Because I'll be closer to walking myself to the lake in Oakland. And hearing my son's voice is always a beautiful reset, you know, whether we're planning something or just kind of just checking in, hearing my mother's voice the same way. So yeah, just being in the ground, being intentional about being with the sun and being near trees or flowers. When I'm in town in Sacramento, I love to be over at Auntie Sylvia's with her plant medicine and in hot water. So hot water is really important to me too. So I'm trying to do that as much as possible, moving in hot water.
I left out movement. I did do that in the mornings too.
Yeah.
I try to dance a bit every day. I have my dance breaks.
And I did talk to Abuelita Cuca and to, Chelito on the way here. So that's just kind of like a way of every day and every how, not necessarily like intentional to just do it. Like it's just, I talk to them a lot too, ancestors.
And before I got injured, I was walking, me and my mother was walking 3 miles every morning. And so, and I really missed that because.
Where do you walk, Shonna?
I stay right around the corner, so like a block away. And we would walk from this area all the way over to Greenhaven. I walk around and look at the homes over there and their landscape, because I love looking at landscaping. That's another thing that I love to do is landscaping and art design with, in landscaping. And then walk back, or we would walk from here and walk over there by John Steele High School and then walk back and stuff. But since my injury, I haven't been able to walk, so I really miss that. So I just try to do whatever arm exercises I can do with my weights and whatever, just laying down on the floor and doing some leg and stomach exercises, try to do that.
It's really wonderful being in the Bay to just walk by that lake and Lake Merritt, and also just in the city. We recently had like a water ceremony, so I got to be there with Auntie Gloria actually to do that walk, and I definitely want to do that more. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Alejandra?
Yes. Alejandra.
So Sacramento has always been the potential for, it's just one thing, a big art scene, and it's in a growing pivotal point. In your opinion, as artists, founders, business people, what is needed to create a successful creative economy in our community to foster and grow SAC as an art scene?
I think that Sacramento is.
Where's Jason? Just kidding.
You say ask
Where's Jason?
I know. There you go. I think it is growing to be a vibrant, art scene and community, but the opportunities for Black and Brown artists have not always been there, and I think that's what we still need to work on. That's why I mentioned earlier, when it comes to choosing artists, I know it's been a difficult journey for a lot of Black and Brown artists, and so we just pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I say, come on and join us, because myself, not being able to show my art, previously in galleries in the downtown area, because of the images that were depicted on the canvas, and many opportunities that were just not afforded to me, as a African American woman artist, a lot has changed, but we still have a long way to go, I think, and especially as far as funding, for organizations. One of the examples that I use is, Big Day of Giving. We've been participating in Big Day of Giving since the very first one, when it was just for art organizations. No more than about 80 art organizations participated. Yeah, Michelle was in it. But then after 3 years, it opened up to all organizations. And today, after all these years, we're still not getting any more than about $9,000 to $10,000, as an art institution, a museum, whereas other art institutions are making anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 to $100,000. That's a huge disparity. So just, more opportunities for funding to help with, opening up spaces in a community like this. If we need to have a big event, and not have all of the high prices, that they have in the downtown area for venues, more affordable prices to put on big events like how they do downtown, but in this community. And so I think that's what I would like to see moving forward that still needs to happen. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have the space to maybe have a call to artists to do something like that? Where we could submit our pieces and it's shown?
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. We're getting ready to, I just reached out to another local artist, Shonna Bradford. There you go. We're getting ready to do a mural project with the Railroad Museum. So I invited him to come to the table because I love his work. And we already have another aerosol artist, Pisco, Henry, we call him Pisco. And then of course we have Marcos and Judah working. But yes, there are gonna be more opportunities coming up. So please give me your information. We welcome you.
I just wanted to say I'm hearing more financial support for artists, but especially Black and Brown artists. And I know yAyA, you're talking a lot about relationship building earlier, I think, coming to events like this, building relationships with each other to support each other, because there's not many people outside of the art community that are supporting us. But anyway, I'll let you talk.
Oh, it's okay. I was just remembering that when we had, the leadership of Black women and Black Indigenous women, Michelle Walker and Alpha Bruton, in the space of running the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission, of which it was called back then. It's not called that anymore. Michelle did have a vision for you to have this museum as well as World Art Space and the rail yard, I recall. And I remember you walking the premises and having the vision, and sharing with stakeholders at the time, as well as, the mayor at the time and council members at the time, when we were activating voices to not only receive arts education in the schools and in the community centers, but to be present in the committee meetings, the economic hearings and such. And we were showing up with our art, and saying, you can't let art die, right? And I also remember them promising like space in Old Sac, right? That, other artists are there, or there's a collective of artists there. And I know people have pop-ups there, but I mean, you've been in this for such a long time. And I look at this work and I'm just like, why has the Crocker not given you a one-woman show, in how many years? Because that's not who I think should own all your work, but that's who I think should honor your work and honor the community that supports your work. And not just that space. I mean, in San Francisco Arts, San Francisco Museum of Contemporary Art. I mean, Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art. This could be anywhere in the world. Why not have it in your hometown, right? Because you've committed to this place for so long. So yeah, for people to just come through on their promises. We don't have Michelle here anymore because they transitioned into Ancestor World, but a lot of people told her that they, gave her their word. People with a lot of money and people with a lot of power. And then when she transitioned, it let a lot of us down because they were promising her everything that she was working with us to do. And in the end, people did not I don't think they held up her legacy with honor and following up. Can you imagine a place called Michelle Walker Hall, but it's the museum of the Sojourner Truth Museum, right? So
we have time for one more question.
Yes.
Maybe Gina. Carlos is going to come to you with a mic.
Gina. Founder of Made Studio in the house.
Our arts leader right here.
So, I hear so much about art, and I feel like in Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, art is just something that is done in everything that we do, and it is depicted in everyday life. Everyone is mimicking the culture of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. And I want you to know if you could speak on the importance of supporting our culture and preservation of our history.
I love that question. I think I've said this, and I'm going to say it again. People love Black culture. They don't love Black people. And that's everybody. That's brown, that's white, that's yellow, that's all of us. We love Black culture. We don't show our love, and we don't do enough to show we love Black people. Same thing for Indigenous culture. Oh, that's so Native, that's so Indigenous. But where are we in service to Indigenous communities? In service to missing Indigenous peoples? In service to land back? Where? If we don't know where to start, okay, we can have a private conversation. Or you can go visit Google, or you can visit YouTube, right? You can visit Gemma right here. You can visit our dear friend Gina right here. But just take a step. That's where it starts, taking a step and sharing what you have.
And I wanted to say that there's been a lot of trauma, you know, in the Black community, generational trauma that we're still dealing with. You know, just imagine, you know, after 400-something years of being enslaved, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're told that you're free of the physical chains, but we know that the mental chains is still carrying on with us today. You know, there was no mental health services there. You know, today when we talk about mental health, we're talking about mental services. So there was nothing in place to provide mental health services for all the trauma. So that's why it's very important that, you know, the celebration of our culture and our heritage, that we instill that in the youth that walk through those doors.
Yep.
There was, I think, about 4 days ago, one of the youth that are in programs at various other organizations in this plaza, he was murdered. There was a huge shooting in Sacramento, and he was murdered. But just across the nation with all of these, you know, homicides in our communities, you know, we believe that if our youth had an identity of self and awareness of self, they wouldn't bring harm to themselves, let alone bring harm to each other and people in their circle and their space. So that's why, you know, we develop our youth docent program. So youth that come to our door so they can learn about their history, so they can share it with other youth that come through the door. So right now there's 80, we have 2 youth in there now, Judah and Nasara. There's 80 youth on the field trip here, and they're learning from these youth. And I wish you all could see the look on the youth that come and see the youth sharing the history, the look on their face. I wish I could capture that moment. They're like, wow, you know, we come from greatness. You know, we had African kings and queens and great civilizations, you know.
Universities.
Yes, universities. So they're sharing this information, and I was really excited that 5 of our youth had the opportunity recently to go on a trip to Ghana. They just got back about, 5 days ago. They was in Ghana for 3 weeks, 5 of our docents that attend Sacramento City College, and it was a part of the PACE program. And their trip was funded, you know, the airline, the hotel, food, all they had to do was have spending money. So, they sent me videos and photos, and they're gonna create a documentary about their experience. But I think most of them said the most touching thing was the door of no return and the last bath. But we teach that here. So for them to teach that here, for them to go there and actually be in the dungeon, the smell that they talked about and experience it, just took it to a whole nother level with them. They told me that their lives are changed, you know. So that's the importance of us continuing to share history and culture so we can hopefully change the lives, the future lives, and hopefully get rid of all this homicide that's happening in our community. We're trying to get those parents to bring those youth here so they can know who they are.
Yeah. Knowing who we are really helps us in the guidance, the inner compass, right, of where we'd like to go, who we would like to reconnect to, our relatives around the world, and to take the time to do that healing work that you're talking about is so important. As you mentioned, Gina, it's like in indigenous communities, you don't separate the artist from the person. It is one. We are one. And when we are doing art, we are basically living. We are living our best life, right? Whether we're writing that poem, whether we're singing that song, remembering that song, practicing that song, walking in that song, and that's the dance, right? So, yeah, that's, for me, that's really important, and breaking the wall often in my theater work, or breaking the wall in my performance artwork, and engaging with community to be in ceremony with me, to participate, right? And not to be afraid of each other, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Shonna. Thank you, yAyA. Thank you, everyone here, for being with us. Yes. And thank you to Bernie and Mark and Carlos for helping out. I will send a follow-up.